There are a lot of advantages to knowing where the balance point is on a limb.
I got this lower piece tied off right here, and there's my lowering point right there, because I'm trying to get a drop zone out here in the open where it's nice and easy for the ground man to handle. One ground man, it's kind of a big branch. My bucket can't get any further through here. I might be able to inch it in just a hair, and I'm gonna have to reach through here and make the cut, which should work. Now notice that's fairly close to balance point tied off there.
And how easy it is for the ground man to position the piece. Watch the slow, gentle movement here. And it's not so much about the cut, it's about where the piece is tied off, near the balance point. So as that's moving across, the rope is taking most of the way to the piece, and there's very little force left on the fibers at the cut. Whether it's a hinge or a rip cut, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get more control out of those fibers when you are tied off near the balance point. On this particular limb, I tied off slightly tip heavy, which means I'm behind the balance point. And look at the place where it's tied off here. It's tied off just behind that first branch union. My old climbing mentor used to teach that oftentimes on these limbs, you'll see the balance point is at a branch union on these long limbs. So if I had tied it right at the branch union there, it probably would have been perfectly balanced. If you notice, most of my rigging, I'm tying off slightly tip heavy. That's why I coined the term near balance point rigging, because you don't want to quite go all the way to the balance point. That way the tips, which are the long side, are going to be going down and away from you. I've seen a lot of tip tying of large limbs on YouTube videos lately, and while I recognize it has some value in reducing the amount of swing, I generally think you're better off getting those pieces to move down and away from you. It really can be a very dangerous practice if it's done by someone that doesn't really understand the full implications of how this piece is going to move. Sometimes it can helicopter around, swing around hard, come back and get you on the backside of the tree, like it did Corey on that walnut limb he showed years ago. A lot of it depends on where that overhead rigging point is, and you have to be able to read how the piece is going to swing towards the overhead rigging point and the rotation of the limb. And this is a perfect example of one of the advantages of tying off near the balance point, which is it makes the ground crew's job a lot easier in handling the piece oftentimes. So see how easy he's handling it? That's one man there on the rope. He doesn't even have to touch the piece. But if he did, it'd be a lot easier for him to swing it around and manipulate it if it was tied off near the balance point, rather than if it was butt tied and just hanging straight down a 25, 30-foot branch. On this next limb, I wasn't able to reach around far enough with the bucket to get a balance tie on it, and let's see what happens.
It's pretty much going to slam no matter what. So I'm just going to cut it below that rope. Let her swing hard. See what happens here. I don't like doing it, especially with dead ash. It's just going to shatter when it slams into these trunks here. But it is what it is. Stuff flying around down there. Wasn't too bad, but that's the kind of thing you get when you load those branches up so tip heavy. They're gonna come down hard.
If you look closely here, you can see a big limb break off of there and come falling to the ground. Remember how easy it was for him to lower out that first branch where he just waited for it to naturally position right where he wanted it? You're gonna see this one's coming down tips first, and that butt's gonna lay right up into the tree. He tries to get it out of there, but it ends up coming right into the crotch there. It's going to be trouble handling that now. And here are a few other examples on a different ash tree of limbs I balance tied. Watch how gentle and easy that motion is when they come off the cut, and how easy they are to handle to get on the ground. So how do you determine where the balance point is if you're trying to tie off there or just in front of it? The answer to that question is, of course, you're going to have to experiment with it. You're going to have to go hands-on, like everything else in this business. But there are a couple rules. Number one, on live limbs, it's generally a lot further out than you normally would think. It's generally well past halfway out on a live limb. Also on the live limbs, look for a branch union. It's usually at one of the branch unions, not necessarily the first branch union, but one of the branch unions. On dead limbs and limbs without leaves on them, you're going to find that the balance point is quite a bit further back, and that's going to be a little inside the halfway point generally. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe and share if you think there's some value in this video. And keep safe out there.